spending time with her husband, friends, family, including her 12 grandchildren. In her spare time, she connects and celebrates with the women involved in motorsports, taking you behind the wall about their journey of life, racing, and how they juggle everything to make it all work. Welcome to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Strap in, window nets up, the pedals are down, and when the green flag drops, we go.
Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with Racing Girls Rock Podcast. We have a very special guest today on our show. Her name is Amanda Busick. Amanda, I'm excited to have you. We've had a little bit of calendar problems between the two of us, but we finally managed to connect today, and so I'm glad that it finally worked out for us to be able to talk. So, Amanda, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? Whatever you're comfortable sharing, your family, and then tell us, how did you get involved in racing and being a pit reporter and loving what you do, which I can tell that you do.
Yes, ma'am. And I'll start. If I'll go ahead and put out a PSA, I would recommend for people never to move the first week of January. That's just not a good idea on anyone's plan, even though, it's a new year, new decade, new changes. Don't move. Just wait, give yourself another week to ease into the first of the year. But yes, thank you for weathering through me with those schedule changes. And oh man, I am my background is I always like to tell people I am in a wonderful position of being able to look at the younger generation coming up behind me and being able to talk with them directly and help them kind of maybe avoid some of the mistakes I did. But there's no path. And that's what I like to try to tell everyone. You think that, you look at other professions where you go to college or then you can go to law school and then you're attorney. There's no way to duplicate what we do in any environment other than in the environment. I can't go to a gym and practice my free throws. Now you can be ready. I always like the quote, chance favors the prepared mind. So when an opportunity presents itself, that's your chance to be ready and to say yes to whatever is presented before you. But background on me, I was born in Greensboro, North Carolina. My family, my mom was an Army brat, so she was all over the world, and her father ended up retiring down in the eastern part of North Carolina, and they ended up in Greensboro. My dad was a big time country boy, planes, trains, Harleys, Corvettes, like just a larger than life personality. He was a farmer and ended up getting the city girl to come live with him out in the country. But there's a big theme in my life. My father passed away when I was 3. So I think a lot of things that I do and chase are trying to kind of live through his eyes that I never got to see. So I want a Corvette. I want to get my pilot's license. I want, it's different things like that the stories that I hear about my dad and just what a character and man he was undoubtedly pushes me to understand that life is precious and life is temporary, and I try not to take any of it for granted, really. But how I got into racing, I think that was the second question. It was kind of haphazard as well. I was started when I graduated college. It was the fall of 2008, and it was right in the recession. At the time, you take whatever job is handed to you, and my NC State had set me up with an alumni working in commercial real estate. About 10 months into that, I realized that I was not a desk person. And after I developed, stomach issues, for some reason, I don't know if it's the internal curiosity in me or just the inability to sit still. I just, it really made me sick. So I ended up co-starting a web TV company with a friend in Raleigh just so we could go to events and started bartending on the side to make ends meet, and ended up getting the rights to do the Jimmy V Golf Classic in Raleigh. I turned that into a reel, drove up to New York City, found an internship with a sports agent, and then worked at a restaurant at night to afford living there. I was in New York for 2.5 years, and then took a job in Chicago as a production assistant. And that was in the college sports space. And then it was about 4 years after that where I found out about this NHRA opportunity when it switched from ESPN to the Fox Sports platform. And I dove straight in. And it is a true testament to that space. The drivers, the league, everyone involved in that series, of just how welcoming and open arms they were in being supportive in my transition. And I am extremely lucky to literally get to do what I love. And I say this often, but there's nothing like 11 a.m. on Sunday in drag racing. You have no idea what's going to happen to you for the next 5 hours. And that chaos is something you can't sell.
No, absolutely not. And people that have never been to a drag race or really any kind of.
Totally. Absolutely. Spot on.
Yeah. So, Amanda, let's talk a little bit about what you do for Fox then. You are, at least on the picture, it says you're a pit reporter, but I'm sure you do a lot more than that. So let's say today is race day. Take me through your day. What are you going to be doing today?
So if it's race day, we have production meetings that kick off at 7:30 in the morning. So it's funny, I can't really eat before races, but I will load up on coffee. So I'll probably get out of bed, get ready. I do like to look at the ladders. In drag racing, we're kind of it's a bracket every Sunday. So the top 16 qualified cars race each other in a duel. So it's 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, 3 versus 14, on down. And you have 4 rounds of racing that end up with someone leaving with a Wally. So I like to check out the ladders before I get into the production meeting, just in case something interesting sticks out, or there's a certain pair that I know I'm going to want to have an interview in, just to kind of be abreast of what's heading my way that morning. The production meeting is kind of just that. We go over everything that we think is going to be something of importance of the day, whether it's a matchup between a rookie and a veteran, or whether it's 2 veterans hammering out, or whether it's something in points contention, or there's always so many storylines that are happening behind the scenes. And that's kind of the cool part. It's our job to, this hanging over you, when you're going to get the monkey off your back, that whole song and dance. And he did. But it was a recurring theme. John Force being a big legend and a big star of ours, but also what an incredible milestone.
Right.
But so, yeah, we'll break into the pits, do the stories that will exist at the top of the show. And we try to run those themes throughout the entire broadcast as long as people are still racing and they exist. And then at 11 a.m., probably around 10:45, I head up to the top end, the safety safari. Everyone's lining up, getting ready for the invocation and the national anthem. And as soon as the national anthem's over, they fire the cars, and I'm up there at the top end with my monitor and looking around. Up there, there's always team representatives, guys from Goodyear will be there, and it's a big family, so we always dab each other and get ready for race day, and that's how the morning starts.
Yeah, and the thing about what you do is it's the same people, so you do develop a family, don't you? The people that you see every week that you're reporting on, something happens to one of them, you sometimes take that a little personally if you've made friends with them. And even though I'm sure you try to remain very neutral about what you're saying or doing because you are a reporter, you can't help but make some very good friendships, I would guess.
Yeah. No, and it's and that's what I'll reiterate that with drag racing. since year one. I started in 2016, and I wasn't at the full capacity that I am now in my role. But even then, everyone, they genuinely wanted to know who you are, what you are, where you come from, what are you into, what's your background. And it's kind of I liken it to not to to say anything bad about college sports, but there's so much policy and red tape that you have to go through. You have to set up interviews through the sports information director, or and in our case, and we kind of take it for granted, but this is just how the drivers are. I rarely do they have a heads up when we need something, or if it's a bigger shoot, sure, we're going to go through their PR reps and stuff, but they have it's almost exactly what the fans see. I mean, we have every pit pass, every ticket to an NHRA race is your pit pass, and they have direct access to the drivers. It's the same for us. I get to go straight up to the ropes and talk with these. You undoubtedly, individuals risk their life to compete in a sport that they love. I'm in my position at the top end. Sometimes you're the first person they see after going 330 miles an hour down a track. So there's this unique kind of vulnerability and space that you get to share with someone in the highs and the lows, right? There's people have different reactions, and sometimes people get kind of dogged for their emotions or their reactions. But I don't know how would you handle going 330 miles an hour down a track, just from the sheer adrenaline to the G forces to how do you react? What is the mental reaction of that? I don't know. I've never done it, but there are people that are willing to do it for our entertainment, and to be able to share in that with them.
Yeah. So for people to sit in the stands and to be entertained, which is why we go, sometimes we don't understand the risks that those people on the track are taking in any kind of racing. We do take it for granted a little bit, I think. And even as you go to amateur events, those people have just as much of a chance of not walking away or being injured. It's a very, very dangerous sport that we do sometimes forget. And I have to step back sometimes and think what these people are putting on the line, because they love it. They love going fast. They love entertaining the crowd. But you have to admire them, that they're able to go out there week after week to compete. And, at 330 miles an hour, I can't even imagine being able to walk when I got out of the car, much less do an interview with a reporter about how it feels, So you have to admire those people for sure. So tell me, what's been the best part of the job that you have now? What do you enjoy the most?
Oh, I think for me, it's definitely just the experiences. The neat part, when you're watching a broadcast, a lot of times you'll see our play-by-play Brian Loans, you'll see Tony Pedregon, the color analyst, you'll see Bruno Massel, one of our pit reporters, Jamie Howe, you'll see myself. What you don't see are the 60 people that are working in conjunction with each other in delivering every second of television that a viewer sees. And I take a lot of pride in knowing that it is my responsibility to deliver what they're all working really hard on. And it's a unique family that we've been able to build. When you think of being on the road so many days a year, you spend more time with these people sometimes than your own family. So it's to be able to share in those moments, and you create traditions, right? Like in Bristol, Tennessee, there's this breakfast restaurant that we go to. It's called Betty's Stockyard. It's cash only. It's literally right next to a live stockyard. And we anticipate going there every year now. They have the best pancakes. Betty's in the kitchen cooking, and the whole breakfast restaurant is wood paneling with just like artifacts from, they've been up there for their entire, like 40 years in that restaurant. So, just little things like that you look forward to, and traditions that you kind of build. But it's been uh, just a dream experience to be part of this, now going into my 5th season. You just look forward to, um, even, I guess the best way to say it is, even the lows are still okay, right? Like every job has a high and a low. Well,
Right.
you'll take those lows to be able to experience what we get to do with such an amazing crew.
Yeah. The behind the scenes people, they don't get near enough credit. I know it's true of any sport, really. You take football, you see all the guys out on the field, and the ones that, the quarterback, and the ones that get all the press. But what about all those guys on the sidelines that practice all the time and everything? And so it's true in every sport. The people behind the scenes don't get near the credit they should. But I appreciate that you know what they do to help you make your job easier, obviously. um, I just can't even imagine the travel. And like you said, they become your family, don't they? Because
Yeah.
you travel with them, you eat with them, you experience the good and the bad, and it truly
Yep.
is a family. So tell me a little bit about, we're going to be gearing up now for racing to start again. So what does your schedule look
Mhm.
like when you are a reporter? Do you get any time off? Do you work, year round, or how does that work when you're a reporter?
Yeah, well, I should have. Our last race was in November, and mid-November, and yes, I should have given myself a little time off. But I am, I can't sit still. It's just, I don't know. I'm not the person that can. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll go on a Netflix binge, or right now, I'm obsessed with the marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah.
But to get me to sit in front of a television inside, I struggle with it. I feel like I always need to be doing something. So I still, on the side, I still work in production. And actually I do some stuff for friends around the country, for mainly through ESPN. I'll do different contracts, but I was able to head down to Charleston for a basketball tournament, college basketball tournament. I went out to Vegas for some football. I was in Columbus, Ohio, watching LeBron James' son play, with LeBron in attendance. So I like to keep my feet wet in other areas of the business. I'm actually currently in Scottsdale. I am jumping on the Barrett Jackson broadcast this week with Motor Trend and Discovery. So it's neat. It's being a reporter. A lot of your work is freelance. So you get to try new opportunities and different things, and you get to kind of see other sides of the business that, like, this is my first time at a Barrett Jackson, and I spent yesterday trying to walk around the whole massive compound just so I have a little bit of an idea of the lay of the land when we kick off today on Motor Trend. But it's unique. I mean, it's not without, I mean, for the last 2 weeks I've been, in the books, uh, reading everything that I can, just to be prepared. You never know what is going to come, in front of you, and maybe something that I remember in my studies will pop in my mind, and I can use that as a fact or something unique to deliver to a viewer.
Right. So that's the thing I think people don't think about either, is that you don't just show up at an event and have a microphone in your hand and away you go. There's a lot of behind the scenes for you as well. You have to, like you said, you have to study up about Barrett Jackson. You have to study up about maybe a new person that's racing this year. You don't just show up, be on on the television screen and then you're done. There's a lot more to it, I'm sure, than what people understand. It's interesting that you're in Scottsdale. I have two daughters that live in Arizona, one in Glendale, one in Whistler. And I'm actually going to be headed that way on Sunday. So maybe our paths will cross while I'm out there.
That's wonderful. I love that.
Yeah.
It's nice out here. I truly, I can't even begin to describe how massive the Barrett Jackson Scottsdale compound is. They better be glad that I don't have any extra money laying around, or I'd be driving something back from Phoenix to North Carolina.
Yeah, I know. My husband and I watch that from time to time, and some of the cars that roll through there they're just amazing. And then the things that you think are going to go high don't always go high, and the things that you think are not go high. And it's really interesting we both try to guess how much it's going to go for, and then see who's right about it. So I'm going to have to definitely put that on my bucket list of things that I want to attend just for the experience. So tell me about NHRA now.
How soon
is it going to
with Super Saturday coming up?
Oh yeah, exactly. So NHRA, how soon is that going to start? And your travel, do you fly most of the time? I'm guessing you do. And what are the things that when you get to the racetrack, I know you prepare and everything, but have there been any experiences that you could share that were either things you'll never forget, maybe good or bad, something that you just didn't ever expect to be a witness to, something like that?
Yeah, well, so we'll kick off the weekend right after Super Bowl. So we're coming up pretty hot. And we kick off always in Pomona with the Winter Nationals. There are things that that we are witness to that it's interesting. The first thing that came to my mind, especially when you think of beginning of season, back in 2018, Brittany Force had just won the championship in 2017. This is our first race back. And during Sunday eliminations in round one, she had a really nasty accident. Mm-hmm. She went into the wall with such force. The car tore apart. She was taken out, very conscious and in an ambulance. But it's just things that I had gotten really, I don't say lucky is the right word, but 2017 and 16, there really wasn't anything major that happened on track. And then 2018, it just became, Pomona kicked off with Brittany's crash, and John had an explosion. John Force had another explosion in Phoenix. The DSR cars were blowing bodies off. There was just it just kept being like something every race that was something big to cover. And typically where I'm positioned, if something's happening on track, I'm normally the first reporter on site to the accident. Last year we actually had a lot of accidents in one of our series, Pro Mod. It's not one of our professional series, but it's exhibition series that races alongside of us about 12 races a year. The thing that is, we get on site and we see that the driver's okay, the safety safari is tending to them. A lot of times what the human side of it is, we see when the families arrive, not knowing, they've just left the starting line in sheer panic heading up to where the crash is or to what's happening on track, having no clue if their loved one is okay or not by the time they get to us. So there's always this wave of the driver's okay, and we get peace in that, and then the next wave is the family showing up in sheer panic, not knowing if loved one is okay. Yeah. So you know, those are things that, you know, you have to take a moment and remember that, just exactly what these guys are giving for our entertainment, and for their pleasure. You know, if you, I do not, the idea that someone is a top fuel driver, a funny car driver, a top fuel Harley, or any kind of race car driver, you know, they have something inside of them that the courage and just the idea that, um, I I'm gonna just liken it to, I watched the Hurley documentary recently, and one of the, um, someone goes through this, what it is to be a racer, and it's almost like, you know, let's say someone passes away at the track on Sunday. On Sunday, as a racer, you're never racing again. On Monday, you're, uh, figuring out how to get to the racetrack to race in someone's honor. So it's this weird, these guys and girls, they just think differently, you
Mhm.
know, and I don't know if it's a, hey, I can be the one that escapes death, or it's not going to happen to me, but it's this love of this sport and the achievement that is just so far beyond what I think exists naturally.
Yes, I totally understand that because I cannot imagine. Now I have my motorcycle license. I got my motorcycle license at the age of 50. My second husband was a biker, and
That's awesome.
yeah, exactly. And my husband kept always told me the fun is not on the back, because I would ride on the back of his bike, you know. And he'd always say the fun is not on the back. Well, I decided one day on my lunch hour I was going to go take the written test and see if I could even pass the test. I passed the written test, and they gave me my little permit that I could ride a motorcycle if I rode with someone older. And long story, we did, and I got my license, and I had a motorcycle for quite a while till I had back surgery. But the thought of riding a motorcycle in the 100-mile-per-hour up range down a drag strip would scare the heck out of me. And I've made friends with several ladies that um, do race motorcycles: Jeanette Thornley, Andy Rawlings, Kelly Klontz. I've become friends with all
Oh
three
yeah.
gals, and I'm just amazed and in awe of what they do, because there's, you know, it's bad enough on the road riding a motorcycle with all the crazies talking on their phones, you know, but putting yourself out there willingly to go
Oh
that,
sure.
I just really admire those women and all, you know, everyone that runs, but especially on those motorcycles, because I know what it takes to ride a motorcycle a little bit. And, you know, they're amazing to me. But I also love that they have such a passion for it, and they don't seem the least bit
Mm.
scared, or, you know, at least when you talk to them, they just love going fast. They love being on a motorcycle. They love representing
Yep,
women at the track. And I'm just
totally.
thrilled that they've become my friends, and I can say that they're my friends.
Oh, they're almost pushing 200 miles an hour,
Mm,
on a machine
yeah.
that you're not in. I mean, you know, it's obvious to us, but there's no seatbelt.
No.
You know, if something happens, like, uh, you know, tuck and roll, and yeah, I think it's interesting you say that, because while I probably would get in a dragster, I would never get on a pro stock motorcycle.
Mhm. Yeah. No, we have a really nice drag strip not far from our house. I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and in Martin, Michigan, there's US 131 Motorsports Park, and it's a beautiful facility. They have some really big events during the year, and my husband and I went up. For me, I went up to meet some of the gals that were there racing, and we sat in the stands, and they had a two-seater, and I don't know how they chose who got to ride in the second seat. But when they were talking about it before it happened, I said to my husband, "Oh, I think that'd be fun. I'd like to do that." And, you know, I'm kind of a speed demon junkie too, although I'm too old to be doing it now. And he said, yeah, well, you should do that someday or whatever he said to me. Well, then they pull up to the starting line and the engine's going and the vibrations, the whole grandstand, they take off and my seat, my aluminum bleacher seat literally shook and the inside. And I said, well, maybe not. Maybe I don't really want to do that. Yeah. I think I'll watch instead. So, yeah. So
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I like my vantage point.
I know. Yeah. You have really probably one of the best vantage points for sure. So let's talk just a little bit before we finish up, because I know you've got a lot going on. What are you looking forward to the most this year? You've got some experience now. You obviously interviewed the drivers. Is there anything special or something about the season this year that you're really looking forward to?
I think that's the best part about drag racing is even if you think you have no idea. We had a big surgence from the rookies this year in Austin Prock, Jordan Vandergrip, Justin Ashley, that were giving the veterans a run for their money. I mean, they were the reaction times that were coming out of these guys and consistently. It wasn't like they were just getting lucky. These guys are coming in with 40, 50, 60 lights that are definitely getting someone like an Antron Brown, Steve Torrance, Doug Coletta. It's getting all of those guys their attention for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So to see how they keep continuing to grow in the sport and see what that's going to look like them for this year. But that's the thing. You just never know everything, when it comes to the engineering and the technology in the sport, people don't realize what an art it is. You have these crew chiefs that are producing over 10,000 horsepower that has to be absorbed into a fancy, I still don't even understand all the things that it can do, clutch system, so that you don't have instant tire spin. And you see, I mean, it's obviously it's fun watching the cars and the drivers, but if you're ever at an NHRA event, watch the crew chief, even up until before the car does the burnout, even after the car does the burnout. They are constantly making changes to these cars up until the second they run. And gosh forbid a cloud comes over the track and that the temperature on the track could fall even half a degree. They're going to make adjustments right then. And you think of all the variables that go into creating a successful pass and successful run. It's truly remarkable to watch. But for me, I think this year it is so it'll be my fifth season with the property. And I always look for ways that where can I improve, where can I get better. And in year one, I really focused on really truly learning all the main players, the teams, the support to the teams. Year two, I really focused on the engineering and the technology side of it. And the last couple seasons, it's been adding on that knowledge with the history of the sport and understanding what drag racing was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and being able to fill in the stories of that of those. So I think for me, I always try to challenge myself to be creative. And if I ever show up at work and and you're just sticking to the same performance or dance, then I'm not even being fair to myself. So trying to find ways to maybe approach things differently or look at something that someone might not be thinking about or seeing. I like to challenge myself in a way you talk about being with the relationships to the drivers. I think that with this point, and while you do have you're friendly with everyone and everyone, I think anyone would drop anything for anyone out there. Truly, that's just the community of people that it is out there. But my integrity is to the viewer. I work based on if I'm sitting at home watching this broadcast, what would I want to know?
Right.
What question would I want to ask a driver? And that's who I answer to. And you kind of have to be a little fearless in that kind of aspect, because you're gonna, I know I upset people, but I hope that also gives me respect, to the drivers, in the sense that, I have to ask those questions. I can't let you pass, whether we're friends or not. So there's no bias, there's no singling out. It's a universal respect that I have for our fans.
Right. And I would think that, as a reporter, you're probably, as you said, you're thinking about, if I was sitting at home, what would I want to see or know or hear about? And the more unique things that you can bring to the people at home, even if it's in between races or before the race or after the race or during some downtime or whatever it might be, the more unique stories you can bring, that's what I love about lots of sports, especially before the big games, whether it be football, basketball, or whatever. I love those human interest stories about, the kid that wanted to race and how he got there, or the basketball player that got cut from the high school team and now here he is, an NBA player. I love those backstories, and those are the things that I think, the people sitting at home feel like once they hear that story, they're more connected to that driver. Maybe that driver has the same kind of story that I have, and so I love that those kinds of things. You have an opportunity maybe to do some of that. That's a unique interview, as opposed to always the end of the run. How do you feel? That's the typical thing. And I think what you bring is, a little bit more outside the box, and I enjoy that about watching you.
Thank you, thank you. To me, it's the storytelling. I like the human interest side of, and I think it's a great balance. My counterparts, Jamie and Bruno, they are, in terms of like the engineering and tech side, they have that down to a science. And it's a unique space up at that top end, where we can kind of dive into more of the emotional and human side of what happens in racing. And yeah, it's a whole ecosystem where we get to kind of work together and kind of balance out the information that's being delivered. Thank you, I appreciate that.
No, you're welcome. That's the I how I found you, Amanda. I'm gonna just tell it to the world. Is I saw you on TV, and I said to my husband, now I think I need to find that gal. I need to see if I can talk to her. And so that's how I found who you were, and I know now more about you. I researched a little before we did this podcast, and I feel like now when I watch NHRA, I not only have some friends now that I've made that are racing there, but now I've also going to add you to my friend list as well. And it just makes you feel more connected, whether you're at home watching or whether you're at the racetrack. And to me, that's the fun part of what I do. I make a lot of friends along the way, and that's the part that I enjoy about what I'm doing, is telling women that, hey, you can be a reporter at NHRA. Hey, you could be the driver. You could be the engineer behind the scenes. There's so many opportunities in racing, in the racing field, for women to be involved. And I always encourage, especially younger girls who want to be the top driver, I always encourage them that there are lots of opportunities. If you love racing in any way, there's so many opportunities. You just have to get yourself out there, get as much education as you can, and then put yourself in a place where you can take advantage of those opportunities.
Absolutely. You couldn't, yeah, I'm completely in agreement with you. I always, um, whatever to me, it was always, you just say yes. I started in the business as a runner. I was the person walking in the television truck and emptying out the trash cans and getting the producers and directors waters or coffees or Cokes. And I think there's a, you know, there's a different perspective that comes from that. We every kind of network or series, they refer to reporters as the talent, and I hate that word. I'm a teammate. I'm not the talent. And you know, the second I forget where I came from, well, first of all, I know my mom's gonna get my butt, but it's just you know, it's one of those things where I truly I am as strong as our weakest link, and that's the way that the television game is. Everyone has to be performing, you know, in the same kind of rhythm for the whole train to work. And with that comes a team mentality and team kind of mission. So we all kind of fill different roles to make it happen. But yeah, you're right. No matter what part of racing you want to exist in, whatever is presented to you, just say yes. And you're gonna learn something. You're gonna take some knowledge. You're gonna take some sort of experience that's only gonna help you, and even better, the people that you're gonna be around and the connections that you can make that could set you up for your dream job. You know, that timing is everything. That's a lot of it. And people want to know that they can trust you and rely on you and believe in you. So it's fun to hear you say that.
Yeah, it's so true. You know, you have to put your foot into a job where maybe you don't get paid or you get paid very little, because nobody starts at the top. Usually nobody starts at the top, and think of all the things that you learn as you go. So that's really the way of the world. You start at the bottom, you learn your way, and eventually when you're at the top, you can reach down and help those that are starting. And that's just the way really that it should be. We have to earn our way up and then help others to get there as well. So Amanda, I'm going to let you go here in a minute,
I
but
think the crazy part is I'll just
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add one thing to that, because I think back of when I first started and was living in New York City, and I'm you know, an unpaid intern, and I'm working at a restaurant at night. I was so impatient, and I do think that impatience helped propel me. But if I could do anything and go back and talk to my younger self, because I was that person, you know, I worked a second and third job to work my first job. And you're tired and it's long hours. And, you know, I slept on an air mattress for the first 4 months when I moved to Chicago. And you think, oh, life is, you know, never going to get, you know, everything's a struggle, struggle, struggle. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I had a mentor even then tell me, remember the hungry years. You're gonna wish you could go back to those years. And I truly do wish I could go back and tell myself that, you know, these are going to be, it's going to be a grind. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a struggle. You're going to cry yourself to sleep at night. But you're going to experience things that will forever carry you through your career. And so anyone that's going through that struggle and just feels like it's just, you know, there's no end in sight. It truly is. Now it's a commitment. Like, you have to truly want it, because it is the you're missing holidays, you're missing birthdays, weekends. You're not seeing your friends get married. You're not, you know, there's so many moments that I unfortunately had to miss out on. But that's the commitment you make to wanting this as a potential part of your professional career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. There's no perfect job, really. Although I don't know. I think what I'm doing, I finally found my perfect job. But there's really no perfect job. There's always the ups and the downs. But as long as you are going to work with a smile on your face and you are anxious and excited for what's going to come, that day, then I think, you found your passion, and that's probably more important than anything. So Amanda, as we wrap up the interview, I just want to give you a chance to anything I haven't asked you about or anything else you'd like to share with our listeners. I'm going to give you the floor. Go ahead.
Oh gosh. I just think that, I've been so fortunate with having just incredible people around me that I get to bounce ideas off of and really kind of hold me accountable. And, I always liken, it truly does take a village. And I think that you can be the village for someone else too. And Melinda, truly thank you for inviting me on. I love what you're doing to bring awareness to women in motorsports and in racing, and maybe you don't just someone out there that gets to come across this. So, as women, just be present and support each other, and there's space for all of us. We're not in competition with each other, and just continue to spread that joy and support and love into other people's passions and dreams.
I totally agree, Amanda. So much I've enjoyed talking with you today, and I know I'm going to cross paths with you at some point this summer. We're hoping to do an event for women at Route 66 in Joliet this summer. And so at some point, I know our paths are going to cross, and I look forward to meeting you in person. That's always a fun thing to do after I've talked to someone. So I just want to say thank you so much for giving me your time today to be on the podcast. And I really look forward to meeting you in person.
Thank you for listening to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at International Women's Motorsports Association or on Instagram and Twitter at the iwmanation. And if you know someone that should be on our show, drop us an email at iwmanation@gmail.com.